Hello students, as you all know that we are discussing the paper, the fundamental principle of social research, and we are on the last chapter, that is doing research, and this is our last point for this last chapter, that is sampling, meaning, key concept and types of sampling. Now for this particular topic, we are having an objective to explain the meaning, key concept and different types of sampling in research. Learning outcome will be to define sampling, its key concept, distinguish between the different types of sampling method. So now let's begin with understanding of what is meant by the sampling. So students, sampling means selecting a small group sample from a larger group population to study. Okay, suppose a college is having a population of students of around 5,000, and we want to know their opinion about online classes. So it is very difficult to collect the or ask all 5,000 students. So the researcher may take or select the 500 students and collect the information from them. Okay, so this will be the population is 5,000, sample will be 500, and sampling process that's selecting those 500 students. So if the 500 students properly represent the larger group, the researcher can use their responses to make conclusion about 5,000 students. So why is sampling used? Sampling is used to save time. Sampling is helping us to save money. Sampling is help us to make research easier to manage and allow all researcher to study a large population using a smaller group. So in simple words, sampling means selecting a representative small group from a larger population to conduct a research. Now let's see the definition of sampling. So there are the scholars who are saying that almost the same basic idea. A sample is a smaller part of a larger population that represent the whole population. According to Young, 1992, a sample is like a miniature picture of entire population. So to understand it, the sample should reflect the important and characteristics of larger population. Then, according to Good and Haidt, 1981, a sample is smaller representative part of large whole. Okay, so instead of studying everyone, we are studying a small group that represent everyone. Then we are having a third definition by Blalock. A sample is small part of the population selected through a probabilities process that represent the different group and characteristics of population. So in simple meaning, the sample should be selected carefully so the different section of the population are properly represented. Now next is purpose of sampling, the objective behind the sampling. So the main purpose of sampling is to get useful and reliable information about large population by studying smaller group. Okay, so it helps to minimize the cost. Sampling helps the researchers save money because they do not have to study the entire population. So instead of just asking 10,000 or 5,000 student the question, you are just taking the out of 10,000, you are just selecting the 500 students and you are doing the research. So in this way, your cost is minimizing. Then we are having a second is maximum reliability. Second purpose of sampling is maximum reliability. The sample should provide accurate and trustworthy information about the population. Okay, so because of that, it is maximizing the reliability. Then maximizing the precision. The researcher tries to get the most accurate result possible from the selected sample size. And The sampling is also helping us to avoid biasness. The sample should be selected fairly so that one particular group is not necessarily favored. Okay. So when can sampling bias occur? So it will be a non-random sampling. If the researcher chooses people based on personal choice instead of fair selection, so it may be like that. Because of this, the biasness will happen. Then we are having incomplete population coverage if some important members of the population are left out. So, and the third one is non-response. Like if some selected people cannot be contacted or refuse to participate, their views may be missing. So, good sampling is highlighting the it should be select the non-randomly. Researchers should not cover the sampling population accurately and completely, and selection of sample of population if impossible to find or refuse to cooperate. Now let's see the types of sampling. Sampling method could be classified into the two categories. One is called as non-probability sampling and the other is called as probability sampling. Okay, now let's understand the first what is mean by non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling where every person in the population does not have a equal chance or chance of being selected. The researcher does not use random selection. Selection may depend on convenience, judgment, availability, or the other factors. Okay, so suppose researcher wants to study students' opinion about online learning. So if the researcher simply selects students who are easily available, this is called as non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling, because we cannot accurately calculate the chance of each person being selected, therefore it is difficult to know how closely the sample represents the whole population. So what is mean by non-probability sampling? Non-probability sampling is no random selection, unknown chance of selection. Okay, so here we can understand that probability sampling is done by random sampling and non-probability sampling is done by random selection. Okay, so important non-probability sampling is easier and often less expensive but may have a higher risk of bias and may not represent the entire population accurately. Let's understand the non-probability sampling with its different types. So non-probability sampling means that every member of population does not have known or equal chance of being selected. There are the different method. Let's understand these three. The first is convenience sampling. Here the teachers select people who are easily available or easily to reach. So a researcher wants to study students' opinion and survey students who are available in the college cafeteria. So choose whoever is easily available is called as convenience sampling. Then second is purposive or judgmental sampling. Here researcher purposely chooses people who have specific knowledge, experience or characteristics needed for his or her study. So to example for this, to study child welfare services, the researcher interviews social works because they have relevant experience. Okay, so here easy way to understand that choose people who are specifically useful for their research is called as purposive or judgmental sampling. Then the third one, we are having a quota sampling, and the quota sampling means researcher divides people into groups and decide a fixed number quotas to select from each group. Like for example, the researcher is serving the 100 people, so out of 100, the 50 will be the men and 50 will be the women. So the researcher continues selecting people until each quota is filled. So what is mean by the quota research, or sorry, quota sampling means divide into groups and fill a fixed number from each group. Now the next type of sampling is snowball sampling. So in snowball sampling, existing participant refers or introduce other suitable people to the researcher. For example, a researcher is studying a hard to reach community. Hard to reach community. After interviewing one participant, they ask that person to introduce the other member. So easy way to understand the snowball sampling is one participant helps find another participant. Then we are having the next is volunteer snowball sampling. Here people choose themselves to participate in this research. Okay, for example, a researcher posts an online survey and everyone interested can voluntarily fill it out. So people participate by their own choice. Then we are having a consecutive sampling. Here the researcher includes every available person who meets the required criteria, one after another, until the required sample size is reached. For example, the researcher needs 100 participants. They include every eligible person visiting a community center until they reach the 100 participant. So to understand the consecutive sampling, take every eligible person continuously until the required number is reached. Now let's start with the advantages and disadvantages of non-probability sampling. So in that, let's see the advantages of convenience sampling first. So it is easy and quick, participants are readily available, low cost, requires fewer resources, and easy access, no complicated selection in the process of sampling. What is the disadvantages of this convenience sampling is may not represent the whole population. Researcher may choose people according to personal convenience, causing biasness, and it may result or result may be not generalizable to everyone. Then we are having a purposive sampling. What are the advantages of purposive sampling? That useful for specific group. Participant have relevant knowledge or experience. Very useful for in-depth qualitative research. What are the disadvantages? It depends on the researcher's judgment. Personal judgment can create biasness, and findings are often difficult to generalize. Then we are having a quota sampling. Now, what is the advantages of quota sampling? That is ensure that specific group are included, faster and cheaper than probability sampling, useful when researchers knows the population's characteristics. Then we are having a disadvantages. Selection within each quota can still be biased. Everyone does not have an equal chance of selection. The sample may not be perfectly present the population. Next, we are having a snowball sampling. And what are the advantages of snowball sampling? It is useful for hard to reach population. Then existing participant help find other participants. Relatively cheap and practical one. What are the disadvantages? Can produce biased sample. Participant may come from similar social network and result are difficult to generalize. Volunteer sampling. Participants are easily to recruit. It is low in cost and volunteers are usually willing to provide the information. What are the disadvantages of Volunteer sampling. Volunteer may be different from people who do not volunteer, creates self-selection bias. Finding may not represent the wider population. Then we are having a consecutive sampling. And what are the advantages of this consecutive sampling? It includes every available eligible participant during the study period. It is less selective than convenience sampling. What are the disadvantages? May still not represent the whole population, depend on who is available during the study period. Finding may not be generalizable. So remember that here these all are the advantages and disadvantages of non-probability sampling. Now let's continue to understand what is probability sampling. So probability sampling means selecting a sample using random methods. So every member of the population has equal chance of being selected. Suppose a college has 1000 students and we need to select 100 students. If we use a random method such as lottery or random number generator, each student has a equal chance of being selected. So why is it useful? Uses random selection. Probability sampling uses random selection, and it reduces researchers' biasness, usually gives a more representative sample. Findings are more suitable for generalization to the population. So probability sampling is a method in which every number of the population has a equal chance or fair chance of being selected through the random sampling. Now we are having a types of probability sampling. The first is simple random sampling. Let's understand what is simple random sampling. Here, every member has an equal chance of being selected in the simple random sampling. Okay, as I have given you an example before also, like there are 1000 students and we need 100 students. So we will use a random number generator to select 100 students. Because of this, everyone will going to get an equal chance to be selected in the research. Then we are having a systematic sampling. Here the researcher selects people and fixed interval form a list. For example, from a list of students, after choosing a random starting point, the researcher select every 10th student. So select every 10th person fixed after a fixed interval. So that is called as systematic sampling. Then we are having stratified random sampling. Here the population is first divided into subgroups, strata, based upon or based on important characteristics. Then people are randomly selected from each group. Like for example, a college. Now we are for example, we are having a topic which is related to the college student. So we will divide the college into the first year student, second year student, and third year student. Now the researcher can randomly select the students from each year easily. Okay, and he can divide the group into a different category for his selection. Now we are having the next other types of probability sampling we are having, that is cluster sampling. So the population is divided in the cluster sampling. The population is divided into the natural groups called cluster. Then some clusters are selected randomly and then the researcher studies population within those selected cluster. For example, a city has 100 schools. The researcher randomly select 10 schools and survey studies in those schools. So easy to understand this, that what is cluster sampling? Select a whole group or cluster instead of selecting individual from the entire population. Then we are having a multi-stage sampling. In the multi-stage sampling, selection is happen in several stages. Different sampling methods may be used at different stages. For example, first we have to select the different state. Then from that different state, we will going to select the different district. Then from that different district, we will collect the different villages, and from that different villages we will going to select different or particular households, and from that particular households we will going to select the individual. So this, the researcher first randomly select states, then district, then village, and finally household and individuals. So sampling, multi-stage sampling is done step by step through the multiple levels. Now let's see the probability sampling method advantages and its disadvantages. Simple random sampling. What are the advantages of simple random sampling? So here the equal chance, everyone is having equal chance of being selected. Less bias, random selection reduces the personal choices, and the results can be often be applied to the larger population, so it is generalizable. Then what are the disadvantages? Needs a complete list of population. If you are going to have a complete list of population, then it becomes easy, otherwise it becomes very difficult. So the second is can take more time when the population is very large. Third, can be expensive if people are spread across the different location. Then we are having a systematic sampling. And what are the advantages of the simple systematic sampling is simple and easy to conduct, faster than simple random sampling, gives a well spread sample across the list. What are the disadvantages? It requires ordered population list. A hidden pattern in the list may create bias, not suitable when the list has repeating pattern that matches the sampling interval. Then we are having a stratified random sampling, and advantages of stratified random sampling is ensure important subgroups are represented, can produce more accurate result, and the third one is useful for comparing different groups. What are the disadvantages? Requires detailed information about the population, more complicated to organize, and may require more time and resources. Now the next we are having the cluster sampling. So cluster sampling advantages, it is cheaper and easier when people are spread across different locations. Does not always require a complete list of every individual. Practical for large scale research. And what are the disadvantages? Selected clusters may not be represent the whole population and can have a greater sampling errors in this, and data analysis can be more complex. In the last one we are having a multi-stage sampling. What is the advantages of the multi-stage sampling is suitable for very large population, reduce cost and travel, flexible because different sampling method can be combined at different stages. Disadvantages: more complicated to design and conduct, sampling error can occur at different stages, data analysis may be more difficult. So at last, let's see the conclusion. What is mean by what we have seen the sampling method and type probability and non-probability sampling. So sampling is very important in sociological research because it is allowing us to study a small group instead of the entire population. This saves times, money and efforts. There are two main types of sampling. That one is called as probability sampling and another is called as non-probability sampling. What is mean by probability sampling is it uses the random selection and usually gives a more representative sample. Non-probability sampling does not use random selection and it is often easier and faster. So researcher can choose the method according to the research objective and population, time, money and required accuracy, and he is having a lot of flexibility to choose according to the need of his research. So here students we finish with these 4 units and hope you all have enjoyed my session and all my lectures. Thank you everyone.